the 2021 annual membership meeting of the Keuka Lake Association. I'm Ray Dell and I'll be hosting the meeting today. This meeting is being conducted via Zoom in accordance with the bylaws of the Keuka Lake Association. At this time, we ask everyone to please check and make sure that their microphones and video settings are disabled. The meeting will consist of reports from the various committees and additional pertinent information by our experts and technical advisors. At the conclusion of the meeting, a question and answer session will be available via the Zoom chat tab at the bottom of your screen. According to the bylaws, a quorum must be present as represented both in person and by proxy. Therefore, I'm going to ask the Secretary of the KLA, Ira Goldman, to report if a quorum is present. Ira?
Yeah. Yes, Ray, we have over 50 proxies, which is the minimum required for a quorum, and we have 31 online participants, so we do have a legal quorum.
Thank you, Ira. With that, I'm going to introduce the officers of the association. I'm Ray Dell, I'm the president. Vice President's Maria Hudson. Ira Goldman is our secretary. Diane Edwards is the treasurer. Denny Carlson is the past president and is present today. The board of directors consists of 18 people in both counties in the various townships throughout both Yates and Steuben County. From Barrington, we have Steve Hicks and Scott Drake. In Jerusalem, Tim Cutler, Sue Oliver. In Milo, Noni Flynn and Bill Lappin. In Pulteney is Doug DeFranco and Tom Love. Urbana is Sam Panisse and Ellen Masico. Wayne, Nancy Feinstein and Wayne Hand. We also have 6 at-large board of directors: Michael Thomas, John Hogring, Dieter Bush, Kathy Gwelly, and Steve Brigham. We also have available to us numerous technical and business advisors. Dr. Tim Sellers is Associate Provost at Keuka College and heads up their biology departments and is a great asset. We also have Mark Morris, who's an ex officio board member of the KLA and is our representative at the 9-element plan. Laura Bailey is the natural resource educator for the Cornell Cooperative Extension of Yates County. Colby Peterson is a technical advisor and he's with Yates County Soil and Water. Scott Demon takes care of our web works, takes care of our computer systems, and does a great job. Arlene Wilson is the area director for Cornell Cooperative Extension. With the introductions done, I'm going to ask, we did have the minutes of the 2020 meeting. They were posted on the website, the KLA website, for review by all. Are there any additions or corrections needed? If none, I will accept a motion to approve the minutes of the 2020 annual KLA membership meeting as recorded and posted on the KLA's website. Is there anyone who wishes to make a motion to accept them?
Ray, I'll raise a motion to accept the 2020 meeting minutes.
Okay.
Steve Hicks, I'll second it.
Dieter Bush seconds.
Who made the motion? Was it Doug or Steve? I'm sorry, you both talked at the same time.
Take your pick. I thought I was in first, but either way.
Okay, Doug?
Yep.
Made the motion, second by Steve. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. At this time, I'd like to take a couple minutes to make some opening remarks in regards to what's been accomplished and what we've done over the past 12 months. 2020 was a challenging year for everyone at the KLA. One of the first challenges we faced was to update the bylaws of the association to comply with the ever-changing COVID restrictions. Changes were made that allowed us to conduct the business via Zoom-style electronic meetings. The Communications Committee set up various electronic accounts that allowed committees to meet, and we still conducted business. The association also modified the reporting status of accounts as it related to budgets, freeing time needed in our monthly meetings. They also acquired additional financial and accounting software, which allowed for remote accessibility for balance inquiries and vendor payments. The KLA reviewed and updated 2 operational agreements between the KLA and Cornell Cooperative
Well, it'll be
Extension.
interesting to try this Parker's. What's it supposed to be like? Cookie said it was good, the food was good, right?
The KLA also reviewed and updated 2 operational agreements between.
Right, wrong, or different? You're not talking to me, huh?
I'm going to ask everybody to mute their microphones. We're getting some feedback. We're getting some people talking. Thank you. The KLA also reviewed and updated 2 operational agreements between the KLA and Cornell Cooperative Extension of Yates County. Currently, we have in place an agreement to supplement the costs that Cornell Cooperative Extension expends related to the Natural Resource Educator Program. That person currently is Laura Bailey, who you will hear from later. This is a valuable asset in that we receive the assistance of the current NRE on several different of the KLA programs. Laura does a fantastic job. Additionally, CCE applied for and received a 3-year grant from New York State for Aquatic Invasive Species Watercraft Steward program. That's a lot, but basically the Watercraft Steward
The
program.
audio will start.
This program provides the inspectors and the educators at the various boat launches that surround the lake. By collaborating with CCE on these 2 programs, it helps us to achieve our mission, which is to protect and preserve. Our mission to protect the lake also meant that we needed to protect our organization. So we contacted our insurance companies to review the existing policies and update where needed. The assets and the organization itself must be protected. General liability, workers' compensation, and special project policies were updated and instituted. For well over 20 years, the KLA has collected data on water quality of the lake. We collect data by visual and by deep water probe retrieval. The probe unit we had needed repairs and could not collect the data that we currently need and require for analysis going forward. The old unit needed repairs, and the cost for an estimate exceeded what the useful remaining life of the unit was. If there was something good that COVID did for us, it was a cost reduction of a new probe substantially. We saved this money by purchasing a new probe last year. We also invested in an underwater camera, which will be utilized in our Starry Stone Ward harvesting project, which Maria and Laura will discuss later. Our mission statement is clear: to protect and preserve. We've collected data in our lake for well over 20 years. But data collection alone is not enough in 2021 and going forward. As we found out late last year, our lake is now under siege by the invasive species known as starry stonewort. We need to take action now to protect the lake. With federal and state funding either diminished or non-existent, the funds of the KLA will have to be used. These project funds are a direct result of your dues and your donations. Without these funds for harvesting and eradication project, invasive species will continue to invade the lake and gradually take it over. The future of the lake is in your hands. Donate, encourage membership of your neighbors if they're not members, and volunteer.
Where's my phone?
Thank you. Next slide. There we go. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to talk about the Alexander and Esther Wallach Keuka Lake Watershed Scholarship Program. I believe today Andrew Hill is present with us. Andrew, are you here?
I'm here.
Andrew, congratulations. Andrew is from Hammondsport. He will be attending State University of New York Environmental Science and Forestry in Syracuse with a planned major in bioprocess engineering. Andrew, are you all packed, ready to go?
Not yet.
Okay. Can you tell us what the bioprocess engineering is?
So basically, it's a focused biochemical engineering. I'll be using microbes to make biofuels. So basically, microbial fermentation and distillation.
Okay. That sounds very complicated, and we wish you well.
Thank you.
Especially when you're being that close to Syracuse University. I'm sure you're going to go over and see Bayheim and the boys play a little bit. Again, congratulations. And we hope that, you know, what we have for you is a small drop in the bucket, but it will help you with some aspects of your future career. And we hope you come back and tell us how you're making out.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Also, we have Maya Rusak. She is not on today. She's unable to attend. She's from Bath and she's going to UB, planned major in environmental engineering. So two great scholarship winners, and we hope and wish them well in their futures.
Looks rocky, honey. Be careful.
At this point, I'd like to turn everything over to Diane and do the treasury report. Diane.
Morning. I think there's a screen we're going to look at, right, Doug? Thank you. This screen gives you a synopsis of our financial picture for 2020 and year to date through the end of May. For the year 2000, as you can see, our revenue was actually $4,700 less than in 2019. In 2019, we sponsored a golf tournament with Lakeside Country Club, which because of COVID was canceled in 2020. Expenses in 2020 were $19,800 greater than in 2019. $15,000 of this was a grant to Keuka Lake Outlet Compact for assistance with funding of the repairs and maintenance of the gate and dam in $1,700 funded a trip for Laura Bailey to attend a conference on invasive species, which has reaped benefits in our understanding of both HAB and starry stonewort, a focus for the next 2 years. The other two areas of increased spending were in our invasive species grant and lake level management. Year to date, our revenue is ahead by $21,600. $6,800 of the increase is due to the generosity of members like you contributing additional dues. The other source of increased funds from our invasive species grant. Because of COVID, much of what was due from New York State in late 2020 was actually received in 2021. Expenses so far this year have increased by $10,900. This reflects a change in billing dates from and resulting payment to Cornell Cooperative Extension for Louise time. At the end of May, our assets, excluding the restrictive WALIG funds, were $13,413 greater than 2020. That balance and more is being used in July to fund an upgrade to our website, the purchase of the new probe that Ray referenced, expenses related to Starry Stonework, and the mail of the new directory to all of you. And again, we thank you for your continued support.
Thank you, Diane, for that report. I also want to thank Diane, and she really keeps a close eye on the amounts in our different funds in the different banks, both to protect them and not to exceed any, insured limits of the banks. And so she's constantly moving things, getting the best rates possible and the best return on our funds. Thank you, Diane, for keeping a close eye on our funds. We have one retiring board member, Tom Love from Pulteney. Tom was a mechanical engineer from Corning, and he and his wife have been over on the west side of the lake since 2000, early 2000. He's a member of the Wine Country Classic Boating Club and the Finger Lakes Museum. We really appreciate Tom's dedication to the KLA. He was the guy to go to and always had insured his boat every time we needed it for water quality committee. The committee needed to use it for lake sampling, and if one of the others didn't have their boat in the water yet, Tom was right there. Tom's a very quiet guy, but got a lot of things done for us. Tom, thank you very much for your dedication to the KLA, and we hope to see you around and stay with us and help us out and volunteer. Thanks again, Tom.
You're most welcome.
Nominating committee, Maria Hudson, Vice President.
Yes, good morning, everybody. We would like to nominate two new Board of Directors for our Board of Directors, Bill Laffin and Michael Gao. And we need to re-elect Steve Brigham, Tim Cutler, Doug DeFranco, Nancy Feinstein, Wayne Han, Steve Hicks, and Sam Penise. I'm not going to go one by one. The actual bios of Bill Laffin and Michael Gao were sent to you in the pamphlet you received for this meeting.
Enter your meeting ID followed by pound.
Oh dear. So do I hear well, I guess we'll do Bill first. Do I make a motion to elect Michael Gao? Well, I guess we'll do them both at once. Michael Gao and William Laffin as first-term members, and to re-elect the rest: Steve Brigham, Tim Cutler, Doug DeFranco, Nancy Feinstein, Wayne Han, Steve Hicks, and Sam Penise. Do I have a motion to elect these people?
So move.
Second.
It was Sue Oliver.
Sue Oliver.
I second it.
Dieter Bush.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so the motion carries. Thank you. And welcome, Bill, back again, and Michael Gao, back again as well. and the rest of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maria, and thank you to the committee for doing the interviews. We got a complete slate. Thank you very much. Motion's carried. The Kaleidoscope, the KLA Kaleidoscope photo calendar contest, showing the beauty of our lake to everyone throughout the year. The KLA just breaks even on this, and I just want to make sure everybody understands that. But it's an easy way for us to promote from the people who actually use the lake through the views of the different photographs that were submitted. And we can promote the beauty every which way we can. So we're going to go through the calendar real quick. January's photograph, the cover, High Above Hammond Sport by Ken Nyko, and January, which is Snow on Silsby. Just so everybody knows, January's photo, Snow on Silsby, was taken by Vince, and he placed second overall. In February, we have Winter Visitors with from Jan Williams, and Ice Breaking on the Shore from Candy Simone. In March. April, Hide and Seek, Nesting, or Hide and Seek, Setting the Nest by Jan Williams, and Sharing the Beach by Pam Howitt. May's Image from Pan, Sharing the Beach, placed third. June, Relaxation by Christine Stocking, and Sparkler Time by Ann Carney in July. August presented a problem that you might have guessed with a presentation of first place for Reflections, which came to me. As noted in there, when you submit a photograph, the committee does not know who submitted it. It's blocked out. You simply keep looking at the photos and photos and photos over and over again. And as they say on the business channels, in the interest of full disclosure, I just want to say that I was shocked that I won first place. And what I did is the money that was given to me for the first place is actually, I returned it right back to the Keuka Lake Association. And I say thank you. But the Ring of Fire, Tanya Loomis, is in September. In October, we have A Fall Hillside from Candy Dietrich, The College by Night from Mike Carney. In December, A Foggy Morning on Elms Point from Candy Dietrich again. And the back cover is A Sunset from 7 Mile Point from Nancy Feinstein. So that was all it's a very nice calendar. I urge people to promote it. It's a good stocking stuffer. It's a lot better than electronic calendar, which you don't get any pictures of, and you see the lake in its glory. So I urge everybody to pick one up, maybe two. Navigation and Recreation, Steve Hicks. Steve is on, but we'll go over this very quickly. We have a strong collaboration with law enforcement, both in Yates and Steuben County. We met with them in April, got their teams together, got our team together to know exactly what's going on, voice the concerns going back and forth. The 5200 campaign will continue. We asked them to watch this closely. We printed the stickers. We have the signs available. We've been to the marinas. We've asked the rental agencies who rent the boats and also some of the people that rent the houses to keep this 5200 so that the renters know what the rule is and what the law is. We also printed up through the Nav and Rec Committee boating and fishing regulations. Scott Drake distributed them throughout the area to the different businesses and marinas. And we discussed what, with DEC, what they would be doing throughout the year. And they have been on the lake, and they are checking for fishing licenses. So anybody that is out there without a fishing license is going to have a visitor. I spoke with one person from over near Jake's on the west side, and he told me he was out fishing, never even heard the guy, and he came right up next to him in a small boat. So DEC is out there, they're doing their job, and they're checking. Cisco Monitoring is going to continue for another year. You've seen the marker buoys throughout the lake. They're going to check and see how the Cisco stocking took hold and what it meant as part of bait fish for the larger lakers that are in there. We also reviewed the events on the lake and how they affected, us and the shoreline, the bass tournaments and things like that. Next slide shows the Steuben County Sheriff's Office and the Yates County Sheriff and how to get a hold of them. And they really, just want to remind everybody to, boat safely, swim safely, and do navigation and best practices that they can. Reckless operation and exceeding the speed limit is going to be one of the biggest issues, reckless operation. The DWI still maintains, is going to be maintained, that law in New York on the waterways. Be aware of any plant material that's on there. We can't stress this enough. Even when you pull your boat out for the end of the year, make sure that it's clean. And when you put it back in the spring, make sure that it's clean. Some people take their boats to different locations and they come back and put it in the spring, don't realize that they have some material on it, and it could be an invasive species. As usual, safety is always your first priority. So that is basically the navigation side of this. Now I want to turn over the screen, and we wait for this every year for the state of the lake from Dr. Tim. Dr. Tim is the founder and the director of the Center for Aquatic Research at Keuka College, a science advisor for Keuka Lake Association. He's got his bachelor's, his master's. He's a fellow at the Oceanography at Texas A&M University. He's a great asset to the Keuka Lake Association. And he's been with us for more than 15 years. So with that, Dr. Tim.
Great. Thank you very much. I'm hoping we can, Ray, if you are allowed, allow me to share my screen.
Doug?
Should give you the option. Is it not there, Tim?
Now I think it is. Yep. You see all that?
We can. I can.
All right. Great. So thank you very much, Ray. And as noted, this has been a very, very challenging last year and a half for us all. What I'll be talking about today, as I typically do, is kind of giving the basis of our water quality. And in contrast to other years, I'll be combining the last two seasons, 2019 and 2020, instead of the normal one because of what we missed last year. As Ray noted, I'm very lucky to be a part of this wonderful organization, the KLA, and function as one of the many different experts that we have here. We've got great people, and personally, I'm looking forward to the next talk, not mine. I'm too boring to talk about all the great stuff. My own training there, I'm a limnologist. I'm an aquatic biologist. I work in lots of different aquatic systems, lakes, rivers, oceans. If it's wet and you can swim in it, I've probably put a probe or taken a sample from it at some point. I've been at Keuka College for a number of years as a professor of biology and environmental science. I founded and continue to be the director of the Center for Aquatic Research at the college. I functioned most recently as the associate provost in the administration. And actually, I'll be this next year, I'll be spending the majority of my time at SUNY Geneseo with a fellowship through other areas. So what I'd like to be able to do is talk a little bit about the monitoring and sampling over the last couple of years. So I'll talk about these monthly samples that Maria and so many other people are actually the ones who go and do. This includes the water chemistry and biology. And I'll be giving you a partial picture of lake health. As noted earlier, there are a lot of different things that go along to make a full picture of what Keuka Lake is and the state of the lake. And also, as was noted earlier, it's not just about the data that we collect, but what are we doing with this and what are the actions going forward? With this information, try to give you some trends of general water quality, both historically over the last more than 20 years, and as well as these last 2 years, and try to put that into perspective, and finally end up with a little bit of looking forward to threats and opportunities. But most of that's going to come from the next talk, which would be great. How we sort of evaluate this data that's collected monthly each year. We can look at it from a time standpoint, that is from month to month. These great volunteers go out every month and collect the data. So we've got that monthly data. Then we can combine that up into looking at it from year to year and even decades. Another way of looking at that, of course, is spatially. Keuka Lake is the most visually distinct of all the Finger Lakes with its Y shape. And so we have very different branches, as we refer to them here. We've got the south branch, the Hammondsport, the east and west, and then the central, which is not really a branch, but we kind of put it into that category nonetheless, in the center by the bluff. And then a lake is also a three-dimensional entity. So we can look at what's going on the surface, but we can also see what's going deep down below there. So with all of these different categories, that's where we'll look at some of these data points. Typically what I do when I start off with this is try to take the very long look. And what was started by one of my predecessors, Peter Landry, is to really say, okay, since we've been collecting data, what are we finding? Now, the good part about this is we can take a long view. In this case, we're looking at a graph starting around 1991 and moving all the way to 2020. So, almost 2 decades of data. That's great. And we can kind of see some simple things going on. The other side of the coin here is that to get this simplicity, we compile a tremendous amount of individual data points, and there's a lot of variation. So we always have to take whatever story, and a graph is simply a story of what's going on over time. We have to take that story with a grain of salt. And so if we look at this, we are seeing one of what we call those nutrients, or the chemical in phosphorus. And there's lots of different kinds of phosphorus. This is what we're kind of combining all of our phosphorus together. And traditionally in freshwater environments, and lakes in particular, we find that phosphorus is the most important or most impact nutrient that we have. It doesn't do everything, but it in many cases, as phosphorus goes, so does lake health go. So we always take advantage of collecting this data and looking at it. In this case, you can see kind of a line there, and we're seeing over these 2 decades that we are continuing to see, in general, a decline over this long time period. But I draw your attention to that little yellow circle on the right-hand side, and that is highlighting the last 2 years, the 2019, 2020 data, where we have seen on a very gross average here, an uptick in total phosphorus levels over the entire time. That is something to note. That isn't necessarily a huge cause of concern, particularly because we have integrated so much data into this seemingly simple graph. There's a lot that's going on that belies what those seemingly higher values do, but it is good to look at it that we are maybe seeing a bit of an uptick. Move to the next one. This is the second, probably most important indicator, and this is looking at a chemical called chlorophyll A, and this is a proxy for all algae. So all algae, whether it's good algae or bad algae, and there's lots of both kinds and lots of in-betweens, the one thing they share in common is this this chemical called chlorophyll. And so instead of having to worry about capturing every single different kind of algae in the world and figuring out which kind it is, we can do a very simple chemical test and measure the amount of chlorophyll in the water. And the more chlorophyll there is, the more algae. Again, a very gross and condensed data here. We also see a nice decline in chlorophyll. That means our algae levels have been generally declining over these last 2 decades, same time period as before. And once again, I've highlighted the 2019-2020 data on the right-hand side there in the yellow. We're seeing we've got a little bit of an uptick in the last 3 or 4 years compared to the almost 20-year average. But again, I'm not too concerned about that, or we can't put a tremendous amount of stock in those data points given everything behind it. So when we move from looking at the lake and a 20-year time scale to really a 1 year, or even more precisely 1 season, typically the sampling happens from late April, early May, every month through October, somewhere in that range. And we take one sample each month. What we're looking at here is that time scale. This case is 2019, and we're looking at that chlorophyll, that algae. Again, both the good and bad all put together. And I further differentiated among to depth. So we've got our solid dark green line, which looks at the algae levels that we're finding in the deeper waters, and the dotted lighter green line is showing the algae at the same time period in the shallow waters, sort of more at the surface. Given these are algae, and algae in general like to have more light because they go through photosynthesis. That's how they make the energy. It makes sense that we would find a little more algae in the surface than we would find in the deeper water. So that all makes sense. You also can see that it varies quite a bit. So those previous graphs over 2 decades showed 1 dot. That 1 dot for a year is really looking at all of this variation. So that gives you an idea that there's a lot more to the story than the 1 dot in the previous graphs. We see seasonal variation, a little ups and downs. I won't go into the details, but tell you that's fairly common, but what we would expect to see and what we have seen in the past. Just for context, it's the same graph, but for the 2020 data. And you can see a pretty similar story is being told with the deeper, lower, shallower, higher, and some variation. The phosphorus we go back to in 2019, same kind of deal. The darker solid line shows what we're finding in the deeper waters. The lighter dashed line is what we're finding in the shallow waters. And you can see they mirror each other quite well, and with more variation. And a little different, but essentially similar story we're finding with phosphorus in 2020. We know with these last 2 graphs that as phosphorus goes, typically so does the chlorophyll or the algae. And we do find similar and very highly correlated. And this is to be expected and makes sense. Phosphorus isn't the only thing that helps to provide nutrients to algae. Nitrate and nitrogen, nitrate being a kind of nitrogen, is another one. And this is where we see some more interesting things, at least from my standpoint. So we're looking at a particular kind of nitrogen called nitrate, and the same kind of seasonal thing, where we are seeing now the nitrate levels decrease from the spring to the late summer. You're not seeing that kind of roller coaster up and down that we saw with the other two. It's a pretty consistent. And we're seeing where the nitrate in the shallow waters, which shallow again will be the dashed lighter version, is actually decreasing a lot. So the nitrate in the shallows around the edges or on the surface is being depleted, it's being sucked down, while the nitrate that's available in the deeper waters is relatively the same. That same thing happens in 2020. We get a little bump there in the late September. That's probably more anomalous than anything. But we see that same pattern where the shallows or the shallow waters and surface waters, nitrates are getting sucked down. That could be an important thing going forward for us, as I'll talk about in a second. Lastly, when we look at these guys together, if we look at nitrogen and phosphorus together, we can sort of see what would, we can get a ratio and see, well, if we were to add one of these things, or if they got a pulse of something, what would do it? If we got a pulse of phosphorus, would that matter? Or if we got a pulse of nitrogen, would that matter? And what these graphs are showing, despite kind of the complexity, is that as the summer moves on, the lake becomes more nitrogen limited. That is, algae become more responsive to nitrogen as the season progresses. So while we think, and I continue to talk about how the importance of phosphorus in our system and what we can do as a lake association to reduce that, phosphorus isn't the only thing out there. And in fact, nitrogen seems to be a pretty big factor moving forward for us. As we mentioned, another way of looking at this is the spatial. So this is a Keuka Lake, and the one on the left shows all our different sample sites where our trusty volunteers go each month and grab samples. We can combine these up and move them into branches. So we've got the east, the west, the central, and the south, kind of very grossly, as you can see. What's interesting here is I'm using the same kind of graph as before, but those four lines, you see those four colored lines in each one represent the different branches. And the only thing I really want to highlight here, because it looks messy, and it is messy, is there's really not much separation between any of these lines at any date, which means that all of the branches are acting essentially the same. They are going, and we're not seeing big differences in the south compared to the east and the northeast. At any point, all the branches are essentially the same, which is interesting, and in some ways it makes our lives a little easier. So a lot of data, and trust me, there's a whole lot more we're trying that we can show and we continue to follow and use, but for today's purposes, trying to simplify and give you some of the highlights for the state of the lake. So the state of the lake overall, I will say, is good. We are still seeing an amazing lake. Keuka Lake, we spend all our time looking at it and studying it, and so that becomes the point of all of our focus. And so anything that happens is blown up, which is good, is we need to do. But I will tell you, as I've told you year after year, the quality of Keuka Lake compared to the rest of the country and the rest of the world is phenomenal. So we need to pay attention, but we got a good thing going, as all of you know. Our water quality year to year, our phosphorus may be increasing a little bit, our algae, all kinds may be increasing a little bit, and of course our HABs are still present. And the invasive species that we've had and we can have are still a definite threat moving forward, as you'll hear more in the next talk. Lake functioning. As I mentioned just a moment ago, we don't really see any real differences among the branches. We find that our chlorophyll, our algae abundance follows phosphorus levels as expected, but it's this seasonal nitrate drawdown and that algae are nitrogen limited in the late summer that could be pieces to some of our HAB issues, something that we are looking at now. And those HAB, that harmful algal blooms, are blue-green algae or cyanobacteria, and evil by many different names. We we continue to see, if you look at other lakes around the Northeast, they're saying that low to mid nutrient lakes, which Keuka Lake is, and those lakes that have zebra quagga mussels, which Keuka Lake does, show high have toxins, and Keuka fits the description and outcome. We've seen that. And the last little bit there, from a science standpoint, these late summer nitrogen pulses, which could happen from wind, can happen for a lot of ways, may be fueling episodic and periodic HABs, or those blooms of this. And that's something that we're going to add to the already abundant amount of information we have from the 9-element plan and others that you'll hear about in a second. It's just another slice. So overall, our state of the lake is good, but we've got a lot to focus on to keep it that way. So again, I am only part of this. I'm probably the smallest part of this, and I'm looking very forward to the next talk with Maria and Laura. I want to thank you guys for your dedication for protecting the Keuka Lake. It is amazing. And as my predecessor, Peter Landry, always closed with, continue to listen to the lake, and I'll ask yourself, if not now, when, and if not us, who? But I know that the question is always answered by all of you, because it is all of you. You do it now, and it is you that make the difference. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tim. You know, he brings brings biology down to something that we can all understand. And, you know, all I can say is that, you know, where was Dr. Tim when I was taking biology in college, and it was at 8 a.m. on the opposite side of campus? I mean, you know, I would really want to go to his class if he, you know, if it was that way, but it wasn't. Thanks again, Dr. Tim. And now we're going to go forward with Maria and Laura and Bill Laffin and the Aquatic Invasive Species Boat Steward Program.
Thanks, Ray. So this year, the Keuka Lake Association, in partnership with Cornell Cooperative Extension of Yates County, funded through the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation Invasive Species Grant Program, is continuing in their 7th year of aquatic invasive species educational efforts at the public boat launch sites on Keuka Lake. We hired 3 full-time watercraft stewards this year. We have a great team of watercraft stewards this year. And they cover the public boat launch sites at the Penyan Village Launch, Keuka Lake State Park, and Town of Urbana. And we also attend several of the paddling events held at Figure Lakes Museum throughout the season. I'll do a quick overview of data from the 2020 season. So 2020 ended up being the busiest season that we have encountered at the boat launches since our start in 2015. The watercraft stewards inspected over 11,000 boats and interacted with over 23,000 people. The most common watercraft user activity was recreation, followed by fishing, and then we saw some commercial and governmental use. The watercraft stewards visited from across the United States, and we had an uptick in visitors last year from Canada as well. But however, the majority of watercraft users, 81% of individuals encountered, were registered in New York State, followed by Pennsylvania. Watercraft stewards removed organisms from 3,490 watercrafts, either launching their boats into the lake or retrieving their boats from the lake. However, the majority of vegetation removed was from boats that were coming out of the lake. Of all of the organisms removed, 1,314 of those organisms, or about 41.5%, were aquatic invasive species, including curly leaf pondweed, Eurasian water milfoil, quagga and zebra mussels, and starry stonewort. And then I have just a few numbers from the start of the 2021 season, which looks like it's off to a busy start as well. Since Memorial Day weekend to the end of June, stewards have inspected 2,798 watercrafts and interacted with 7,457 individuals so far this year. And that's what I have for the Watercraft Steward program. So Maria or Bill, if you want to add anything.
No, you did a great job. Thank you.
Yes, thanks. Thanks, Laura.
Thank you, Laura. Lake monitoring activities in the Starry Stone Ward project. Laura and Maria.
Okay, so I think I'll talk about, can you all hear me? Am I unmuted? Okay, so we have now on the lake 4 different programs where we are actually monitoring the water for several different parameters. The first is our 30-year lake water quality monitoring program, which it's an ongoing program. It's been, which the data from which you were just presented by Dr. Tim. And we have, as he pointed out, we have 4 open water sites, 1 in each branch and 1 in the middle. So the north, the south, the middle, and the east and west. Sorry, east, west, central, and south. And at those sites, we actually take a surface sample and a deep sample. We also take a sample that is a composite from the surface to the thermocline. That's kind of an interesting sample. And then we measure clarity, which is using a Secchi disc. And we also, during the summer months of June, July, and August, take a pull of plankton. So we actually drop a net about 15 feet down into the water and pull it up and collect all the different little buggers that are swimming in the water. And sometimes it's quite a lot. So and those things are analyzed by Cornell at Shackleton Lab. And that also adds to our body of knowledge about what the lake is doing and all that. So that's a program where we actually monitor for nutrients, clarity, plankton. We also work with the New York State Federation of the Lake Associations. It's called the Citizens Statewide Lake Assessment Program. We've been doing that for 3 or 4 years. And the samples here are actually collected at the central site, the same as our KLA central site, and then sent to a DEC lab. And this program is twice a month, whereas our KLA sampling is once a month. And it goes from June, July, August, September, so about 8 samples a year. And what those samples are, same thing, clarity, nutrients, so nitrogen, phosphorus, and chlorophyll. We don't take plankton polls or anything for that, but those samples are analyzed at a DEC lab, and their results actually are very close to what we get. And that's good for us because it verifies that what we're doing is the same, is, in accordance with DEC protocols, that kind of thing. So it also, excuse me, provides us a wonderful report at the end of the year. And this year's report was delayed quite a lot because of COVID, but it will be available on the website. And also I'm going to have Doug send it out to you all in the e-newsletter so you can look at it. It has similar graphs and analyses as Dr. Tim presented, but it also gives you a comparison for Keuka to other lakes like Keuka. And I'll just read you a little bit from this report. It says that Keuka Lake, our scorecard is that we have, we're very oligotrophic, which is good. The lake perception, the perception of our lake for recreational use is very good. We do have harmful algal blooms or HABs. Our average is kind of poor. We've actually had a few compared to, of course, everybody's having them now. But our open water algae levels are very good. So in general, just like Dr. Tim said, the New York State DEC views Keuka Lake as a pretty good lake, and that our quality is very good. We are susceptible to HABs, and we're also susceptible to invasive species. So that's the problem. We are now going on to a fourth year of stream water sampling. So another program we do is we sample the stream. So we're sampling water that's coming into the lake. And we completed 3 years of sampling at 8 sites, the 2 inlets and then two large glens, in which we looked at about 44% of the watershed, of the stream of water coming into the watershed. And now we're going on to looking at different streams that are in sort of hot spots. So we're looking at a stream that's going into Marlena Point, a stream that's going into Willow Grove, a stream that's going into Brandy Bay, one that's going in that's in Pulteney that's actually been reported with, manure smell or been associated with a lot of foaming in that area. And then two large streams coming down into Hammondsport, one of which has been reported with large amounts of sediment going right into the flume that goes in right at the boat put in Hammondsport. And then another one, which is associated with a lot of agricultural runoff. So that's what we're doing there, stream sampling. We take that data, look for total solids. We look for also phosphorus and nitrogen. And then finally, we have a monitoring program for harmful algal blooms. And this is not actually taking water samples and looking for nutrients. Actually, we're monitoring the lake along the shoreline for the harmful algal blooms. If a bloom is noticed by one of the volunteers along the lake and they have been trained to know what these blooms look like, then they have the ability to take a sample of the bloom and it gets analyzed at the Finger Lakes Institute for the levels of actually blue-green algae, blue-green chlorophyll associated with that, with the species of cyanobacteria that is the harmful algal bloom. So we thank very much these volunteers. We're keeping a close eye on what's going on with the algal blooms. We're working closely with the DEC and their programs to try to figure out how these things are formed, where they're forming most likely, and why they're forming. So we'll hopefully get some scientific evidence on what's going on here, but it's kind of a something where we just have to collect data, and we collect weather data, temperature data. We're working with Seneca Lake as well and Canandaigua Lake. So the whole Finger Lakes area is actually participating in this. And we're lucky to have all the trained volunteers on our lake. Laura Bailey is the one who's running this program out of the CCE, out of Cornell Cooperative Extension. And she's doing a fabulous job with these volunteers. And it's quite intense when the HEB season gets going. So thank you, Laura, for all of that. And thanks to all of my volunteers who come with me sampling. And hopefully if you want to volunteer for any of these programs, you can let me know. I especially need somebody to go out with me on the off days when I'm not on the KLA boat to sample in the central site. And I just go right from my dock and go to the central site and take a sample for the CSLAP program, for the Citizen Statewide Lake Assessment Program. So that's just a once a month thing. I could use somebody to go with me. So thanks very much. And if you have any questions later on, you can ask me what we're doing. Thank you.
Maria, do you want to give an update on the Starry Stone Wharf project in the Branchport area?
Sure. So if you've been reading your quarterly newsletters, there was an update in there. Well, there was a description of the project. So we're getting into the time frame where we are actually implementing the project. And what we've done is contracted with a company out of Illinois who has a lot of experience with harvesting starry stonewort. And the way that they're going to do this is they're going to put in at the marina, Basin Bay Marina there in Branchport, a pontoon boat. And the pontoon boat is fitted with a suction hose, basically a Venturi pump, which pumps water from the lake and then back out again and onto a set of trays. And their divers are going to go into the water near to the boat, about 50 feet away from the boat or less, and actually hand pull underneath the water the starry stonewort out of the sediment, feed it into this suction hose. It's like the size of a dryer vent type thing. And it goes up onto the pontoon boat. And then the starry stonewort is filtered out, fragments and little teeny bulbules by these trays on the boat. And then water is returned to the lake, hopefully without any fragments or bulbils. And the problem with hand pulling normally, or even mechanized harvesting, is that the starry stonewort gets chopped up and a lot of the fragments can go downstream and actually, reform another starry stonewort plant. So we're hopefully that this diver assisted suction harvesting is going to make a big dent in the starry stonewort that's at Sugar Creek and into the lake at Sugar Creek. We got a grant for $10,000 from the Finger Lakes Institute PRISM, which is Partnership for Regional Invasive Species type. I can't remember the whole name of the whole thing of it, but PRISM is a great asset to us for identifying and finding out the best management practices for starry stonewort and other invasive species. So yeah, so that's going to start August 1st. Meanwhile, we've been surveying the area. We've put up educational signage to warn people of the starry stonewort in the area. We are developing a map of where it is exactly using Soil and Water's Trimble device, which gives a very accurate GPS coordinates for us. We will be presenting it, with our grant that we got, the $10,000, we're required to present a summary of our project, what we did and how it worked, and that we'll be doing by the end of December. So there'll be more information on how this works, but it's very concerning, starry stonewort. It's very invasive. It can form these heavy mats that will choke out the native vegetation and destroy the habitat for our little invertebrates in the bottom of the food chain that feed the fish. So we're really hopeful that this dash will alleviate it, and then we will be able to look at that next year and find less starry stonewort, perhaps more controllable starry stonewort. The problem with it is we can't eradicate it. All we can do is control it. So this program will be an ongoing program for years to come. Hopefully it will be successful.
Thank you, Maria. Just to reemphasize that this is not something that's going to be done once and then we're going to step aside from it or never go back. We're starting this. This is going to be a 2-year project that we initiated back last October with our first grant application, which we sent to the federal government and got it in on time, but we were not chosen. We were able to get the grant, as Maria said, through PRISMs and the Finger Lakes Institute. So this is going to be something that your dues are going to be funding every year, because the state will, as we do this with permission of the state and under their guidance, we don't do anything without their approval, but they aren't giving us any money to do it. So we have to do it. And if we don't do it, he said, it's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Back to the Watercraft Steward program, as Laura and her team who surveyed the area found, there is no starry stonewort north of the boat launch on 54 in Branchport, right at Sugar Creek. So it starts in that Sugar Creek area and goes down along the west bank and is now out into the lake. And that's why we have to take action. It's a 2-year project. We will be giving our presentation back to the Finger Lakes Institute so that other, lake associations can learn from what we learned. One thing we've learned already is the bureaucracy and getting of permits that are required is very time consuming. So we will be going forward with this project both this year and next. We've set aside money. Once again, it's your dues money that's set aside for this because there's no other funds available other than whatever the Finger Lakes Institute gave us, which is helpful, very much so. So anyways, we're going to go back with it. And I can't thank enough like Jack Wheeler over to Basin Park Marina. He's doing a lot for us. Anything that we need, Jack has been able to get for us. He's going to give us some space to dock boats in a prime time, which is going to take right around the first part of August is when the dash boat, the diver assisted suction harvesting machine comes in. And he's going to allow us to tie up over there and use his facility. So many thanks to Jack and the town of Jerusalem for hauling away this material, and to Hunt Country, who will compost it and get it out of the way. So we got a lot of people to thank in regards to this project. It's going to be very extensive in the next couple of years. So thank you very much, Maria. Anything else on the SSW project?
No, I'll take questions at the end. And again, thanks to Laura for helping us out with this. She's been amazing. Also Ethan Hall from Soil and Water Conservation, Yates County. He's been out with us, and we've worked with the Starry Stonewort Collaborative at the Finger Lakes Institute, and the Finger Lakes Museum people have been huge help to us too up there in Branchport. So thank you to all of those people outside of the KLA.
Right. Thank you again. Okay, we'll move to the Seneca Keuka 9E plan. Mark, are you on? Mark Morris?
I saw him out there.
Okay, all right, I'm on mute. Do you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so hi, thanks for having me. What our update, and this is from Kobe Peterson, Steve Butchko, and I, our update is was in the mailing, okay? And so it says update on our watershed management plan 9E. We did a similar thing last year for the annual meeting. Okay, and this article is presented by the 9E Plan Executive Committee, Keuka Lake representatives. So myself from KLA, Steve Butchko from Quick, Kobe Peterson from Yates County Soil and Water, and also serves as the Quick watershed manager. This was this is based on a grant in June of 2018. Seneca Lake Pure Waters and Seneca Watershed Intermunicipal Organization, along with Quick and KLA, formed a Seneca Keuka 9E plan, and we submitted we submitted a $360,000 grant to the Department of State. It was a CFA grant, and representatives, and then that was and our representatives from Quick, KLA, Yates, and Steuben County contributed matching funds. to that grant. So the grant had like $90,000 worth of matching funds. We established an executive committee consisting members of Quick, KLA, Seneca Lake Pure Waters, and SWIO to oversee this grant. So we've been kind of working on this. The grant funds that the creation of this 90 plan will fund the grants that we need to put in place to solve the problems that are going to be identified in this 9-element plan. The 9E Executive Committee, along with the Finger Lakes DEC Hub and our consultants, which are Ecologic and Anchor QEA, have been actively working on this Seneca Keuka 9E plan. Shortly after we got the grant, SWIO hired Ian Smith as the Seneca Lake Watershed Steward in April of 19. And we brought on Kobe Peterson, who had been working with Quick to be the Keuka Lake Watershed Manager. He had been offering with that function in Quick. We are also using the soil and water assessment tool, which is called SWOT, to model the studies. Some of the data that came from the DEC statewide study, and we learned from that a couple years ago that duration, that things such as lake orientation, wind direction, duration and speeds, and presence of zebra and quagga mussels impact the presence and frequency of HABs. These factors and others are being incorporated into the model. We held a project advisory committee meeting in June of 2020 to help us prepare for the first public outreach session, which was in August of 20. As I was mentioned, this is a Department of State and DEC grant. There's a process that we follow, and it has us utilizing project advisory committee and public outreach sections to get public input into our process. Turnout was good at this. This presentation is in the letter. I point out what website you can go to if you want to see this presentation. In December of 20, we introduced our first quarterly newsletter, which covers a range of subjects such as 90 planning, water treatment and monitoring, agricultural projects, voices from the lake, soil and water highlights, and more. The most current version of this newsletter is in the July 1st KLA e-newsletter. So all of these have been shared in whatever the next KLA newsletter, so you can get updates from that. In April 21, 2 regional planning groups, Genesee Finger Lakes Regional Planning Council and Southern Tier Central Regional Planning Council, and 6 county planners and legislators were given presentations by Steve Butchko, Ian Smith, Kobe Peterson, a woman from Finger Lakes wine country named Ellen Ward, and George Franz of Cornell. And the topics of this presentation included an overview and update of our 9E plan, the post-9E implementation strategy, discussion of the value of the Finger Lakes area, sharing ways to protect it through executive zoning, and a path forward. So that session was just held a few months ago. In May 21, our 9E team received and reviewed a presentation from Chuck Lawson from the National Park Service regarding the proposed Finger Lakes National Heritage Area feasibility study. We actually see that this is going to help us. We think that if we get adopted as a Finger Lakes National Heritage Area, that'll help with a lot of the environmental activities that we'll be trying to advance. Our second PAC meeting was also held in May, and we had presentations from Ian Smith, Mike Worth of Anchor QEA, Kobe Peterson, George Franz, and Cornell University Services students. Topics discussed included project model calibration and validation, remaining elements targeted for 21. Key exercise of the meeting was to identify problems in the watershed, single or multiple locations of that problem. How do we correct the problem and who pays for it? Examples could be will be from in the following areas: agricultural forest, wastewater management, climate change, invasive species, and local laws. You can see this is also in the article. I've included what the link to the that location.
Okay.
I'm still going here. I was just turning the page, Ray. So the two events are going to be occurring in August, and the Town of Milo Agricultural Committee and Yates County Soil and Water have planned on-farm workshop discussing no-till and associated best management practices. Other topics covered in the training will be farm cover cropping, common weed identification, and manure management. Another PAC meeting will take place in August as well. Our second public outreach section takes place on October 7th. Topic and directions will be determined by the PAC discussions in August. This meeting is the best way for anybody who's interested in this topic to learn more. Is to actually attend this.
Yes.
And it'll be available by Zoom. The draft 90 plan is scheduled to be completed by end of December 21. The plan will be sent to the DEC for review. There's going to be in early 22 a Milo Ag Committee in Yates County Soil and Water. They're planning another soil workshop similar to what were held in the past couple years. And the third and final public outreach session is expected to be held in concurrence with the Land Use Area Leadership LULA training in April 22. The final version of the 90 plan will be available at this time. Ray, and then the other thing that were listed in the article is who were the members of our executive team. I'll just mention the people that weren't previously mentioned. From SWIO is Mark Venuti. From SLIPRA is Dan Corbett. And from FLI is Dr. Lisa Kleckner. The other people I mentioned previously in my discussion. And then other key players who have been active in this are from Ecologic, Liz Moran, from Anchor QEA, Mike Worth, from the DEC Finger Lakes Hub, Tony Prestigiacomo and Luga McCafferty, from the Department of State, Kate Hagel, from Yates, from Ontario County's Soil and Water, Elena Robarge, Cornell, George Franz, Cornell Cooperative Extension, Laura Bailey, Keuka College, Tim Seller, and Lula, Steve Butchko. And then some key PAC members that are active in KLA are Maria Hudson, Tim Cutler, Steve Brigham, and Tim Sellers. That's it.
Okay, Mark, thank you very much. It's a program we're going to be watching and waiting for that December report, and hopefully the DEC accepts it. So.
And then I welcome any questions in the question and answer part. And Colby is also on to help if we need.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, additional reports. Lake level, Wayne Hand. Wayne is the chairperson of the Lake Level Committee. And Wayne, do you have some additional things you want to bring up?
Yeah, good morning all. The chart that you should be able to see now is the same as what's in the website, with the exception of there's 2 more years of historical data added, as well as some additional information to give you some perspective beyond what's on the website, which only really shows 1 previous year. As you can see from here, there's 2018 through 2021 actual levels for the entire year, with the objectives the upper level maximum at the red line and the lower level minimum amount on the yellow line. Clock, which is really charged with maintaining the level with active involvement of the KLA. We attend all of there are representatives from the KLA and attending all meetings and influencing things where we think they should be. But basically, the clock organization and the gate manager have done an excellent job for the past several years. You see the way up on top, the mean high water level at 715.3. In the past 20 years, we have only approached that 3 times. Basically, it stays very close to the objectives. One exception is due to the droughts we had for the last 2 years, the green and the brown line in the summer and fall, we just were not able to maintain level. What came in was not enough to maintain the appropriate levels. Hopefully that does not happen this year, but in anticipation of potentially it could happen, since the spring of this year and early summer, we have seen very, very little input. There have been fewer gate changes in 2021 than we've ever seen. It's pretty much been the minimum level or minimum opening of 5 inches almost the entire time. So clock is trying to anticipate and protect us for the balance of the year. And right now we're just above the midpoint, and they'll try to stay between there and the maximum objective, just in case we have a dry summer and fall like the last 2 years. Additionally, as was mentioned by Diane in the financial review, there were several repairs done over the last year, the control structures, the gates, of which the KLA provided a $15,000 grant to help in that effort. There is activity going on to look at gate 1, which was damaged during an opening in January. It's fixed at 15 inches and 5 inches and basically can't move. So they're evaluating, and there'll be some sort of program to correct that. Meanwhile, the other 5 gates provide us adequate control, except for possibly a really extreme rain event. Now, over the past couple of weeks, we have evaluated the accuracy of our system equipment, which was installed in 2013, and have found that its accuracy is the same as it was then. Everything shown on these graphs is within a fraction of an inch. So that's very good news to see there. There are several key elevations that property owners, which make up a large share of the membership of the KLA, should be aware of. And some of these you probably are, and maybe others not. So I'll just quickly review them. The mean high water level is really where land use regulations of your municipality are defined and their jurisdiction ends. And you remember that was way up towards the top of the chart that you saw on the first graph. The low water mark for Keuka is 712.5, which is way down towards the lowest point that we see during the wintertime. And that is the boundary between individual property owners in the state of New York. The state of New York owns the whole bottom underneath the lake, and that place where your property ends and the state begins is the low water mark at 712.5. Now, the 100-year flood level is at 721 feet, established back in 1977, which we haven't seen in many, many years. Back in 1972, Agnes approached that but that's the official 100-year flood level. And where that comes into play are the current FEMA required regulations for new construction. The minimum level of living areas must be 2 feet above the 100-year flood. That's 723 feet. There are literally hundreds of existing dwellings, cottages, homes all around the lake where living areas are certainly below that. So you need to recognize that these are our laws. And if you're planning on something from a construction point of view, you need to talk to people in your municipalities, the code enforcement officers, to understand what it might take to allow your project to progress. Again, this 723 feet is 9 vertical feet above of what today's lake level is. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Wayne. It's an important side of things, and a lot of people ask why are we still letting water out, you know, even the last 2 years in that drought time, or the late summer, early fall. And Wayne, correct me if I'm wrong, but we have to maintain a certain amount of flow, or Clock does, to take care of the sewage treatment plant for the village of Penn Yan. Is that correct?
That is correct. And that's why it's pretty much a 5-inch minimum opening, especially during those low level periods of time that achieve that. We can't go less than that. And when in 2019 and 20, when the that amount of water outflow plus evaporation exceeded what came in. So it goes down and there's nothing we can do.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for that report. Doug DeFranco, Communications Chairman.
Yeah, just a quick comment. We had the survey that went out to everybody early part of 2021. We ended up with about 473 respondents. So appreciate everybody that responded. That's about a 34% response rate. Some really good comments. One of the takeaways and one of the actions that we're taking from the survey is a redesign of the current website, trying to give it an updated look, simplify the site, make sure all the information is updated, improve navigation, make it a little bit easier. So working with Scott and his team on updating that. And the other big takeaway was, which is part of the website redesign, is to make sure that we do a good job of marketing the KLA. So when people come upon our website, it doesn't just simply look like a lot of great data, which it is right now, but draw in new members and try to recruit those new people that are finding us for whatever reason through searches of Keuka Lake, or if you're looking for lake level or water temperature. We get a lot of hits from outside of our membership base. We want to convert those into members. So look for an updated website, probably to be launched sometime late in 2021. And that's all I have, Ray. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Financial Review Chairman or Chairperson, Kathy Gwally. Kathy, you got anything you'd like to offer?
Just quickly, hi, everyone. We completed our semi-annual financial review following all the appropriate protocols for a board of our type. Everything went through smoothly with good discipline to financial processes and audit protocols. And we have reports of that to be available. And the next one will be in at the end of the year. So thanks to everyone who participated, and any questions, folks can reach out to myself or Ira Goldman.
Thank you.
Yep.
Membership, John Haggreen had to leave. He had a commitment with his grandkids, so we understand that. The golf tournament is Monday at Lakeside Country Club. The registration time starting is 9 o'clock with a shotgun start at 10. We hope to have a great turnout and enjoy the day. In regards to membership, we have to remember this. Membership provides us income, and income drives our projects and our programs. Without membership, we couldn't do this. So thank you to those subcommittees or those committees. The Keuka Lake directory is out. It's being mailed out. Everybody should receive one as of now. We do have extra copies available. I want to thank Margot for getting that together. If there are corrections that need to be done, please just send them to Margot. We'll get them, we'll get it corrected in the database. We do import a lot of that information, and sometimes it's not ours, but we'll try to make sure that when we get it to the directory, it is correct. And Margot will take care of it for sure. And thank you, Margot, for your dedication, making things run smoothly for all of us and helping us throughout the year. And finally, we do have as stated, we do have volunteer opportunities available for stream testing, shoreline monitoring, helping out with sea slap collection of water samples. Please let either Maria or Margot know at the website through email, and we'll sign you up as soon as we can. I also want to do, in closing, I just want to say thank you to several of the board members who contributed significantly to the KLA organization over the past year. And they really haven't heard their name here today. And I want to start with Tim Cutler. Tim is, when we first started out with that federal grant that we wanted to put together, which required a lot of filling in the blanks and everything, we called on Tim, and it just, with everything he's got going on, he's still put forward a great, grant application with the help of Dieter Bush. Dieter was great, offering his insight and his expertise, bringing in his background from federal fisheries. Kathy Gwelling, Michael Thomas, Noni Flynn, Sue Oliver, for their dedication and following up. We had Ellen Maseko and Steve Hicks, who did insurance review for us. Stork Insurance, local insurance companies, the one that we're with now, and they're doing a great job for us. And it's these people that you don't hear a lot about. You got Scott Drake riding around the lake handing out the fishing regulations and the boating regulations. But, Denny Carlson, thank you very much. Denny is a past president, and his continued assistance. Arlene Wilson from Cornell Cooperative Extension, she has meeting after meeting going on and keeping us informed about what's happening. Her and Bill Laffin running that stewardship program is great. So I just think that in the NRE, the Natural Resource Educator Program, is something we could not live without. So I just want to say, thank you to Mark Morris and Colby Peterson from Yates County Soil and Water. And lastly, Ira Goldman. Ira, he's always a guy that I can send something to and say, what do you think? And I find out honestly what he thinks. It's nothing that's glazed over. And Ira will find it. So special thank you to these people, who are not mentioned above. So with that in mind, what I'd like to do is open up the question and answer portion of this. If you got any, there's a chat button at the bottom of the screen. Click on it and send us the question. And we'll wait here for a couple of minutes and see what questions we get, if we can answer. Doug, are you getting any questions?
I haven't seen anything come up yet.
Okay.
All right, so there's one that, I don't know if you saw that one, right? One just came up. Is there any way to make a statement about growing number of surf boats and the damage they are doing and repeated waves to the seawalls?
We discussed that, and Steve Hicks, are you still on? I want to go back to our meeting with the sheriffs at the beginning of the year, and I do believe that we brought that up as a possibility. We know that there was some discussion with them, and once again, it's the 200-foot rule, and there's kind of a controversy as to if that applies. So.
Yeah, I'm here. Right. So we did bring it up The problem is the wake boats are illegal. Can't ban the wake or surf boats. But the key would be to keep them away from 200 feet at least from shore, which is a law. They cannot be close to shore. And then we asked the, not only shore, I should say, but docks, moorings, etc. They have to be 200 feet away from those items as well. And we asked the sheriffs, and they said they would watch for that, but there's only so much they can do. So really, it's a problem, we know, but there's not much we could do since those boats are legal, other than keep them as close to the middle of the lake as possible.
And I believe that was one of their suggestions is to, ask them to be a good neighbor and do their wake riding farther out, so that because it is some of these actually take on water to create a larger wake, and it is damaging to the shoreline. So thank you, Steve.
All right, we have another question. Is there any way to send out a KLA statement, though, or ask them to use more of the lake rather than circle in front of a particular section of the lake?
That could be one of the communications through the e-newsletter. I would think, Doug, you can jump in on the e-newsletter, and also maybe put a notice on the website.
Yeah, we certainly could put some kind of note out there to ask them to be out there, and yeah, that wouldn't be a big issue.
We would do that. We'll get that done.
Wasn't there a, this is Maria, wasn't there a very informative page in the last printed newsletter that gave guidelines for talking to people about how we should approach people on this, and to be positive, and try to inform people of the being a polite wakeboarder. Yeah, there we go.
And if we can, we'll put that out on our site and out on. I don't do Facebook. I'm just not a Facebook person. So I mean, it can be put on the Facebook link that we have for the association. So.
Yeah, Ray, I just posted the link to the June newsletter in the chat session. So the other suggestions about publishing it in local newspapers is good as well.
Okay, Iris, thank you very much.
I think that the way to approach, if you have concerns about a certain boat, try to figure out who that is, and approach them and say, hey, thanks for being polite when you come by my property. You know what I mean? Just try to be more positive about it. If you sort of attack people, you're not going to get anywhere. I have some very good friends who have a big wakeboard boat, and they absolutely know that this is an issue, and they are very polite about it, but they still have a lot of fun. And so I think that just educating people on the issue is the best way to go about it.
And it is not just one, is one of our members said, it's not just one boat. There's more and more of them showing up on the lake. I believe, in my area here, we have now 2, possibly 3, plus a motorized surfboard, which I've never seen before until this year. So technology, unfortunately, is invading the lake, and it's something that we just have to watch. We have to monitor. The sheriff's departments know our concern. The navigation and boat patrols are watching for it, especially the 5200. But other than that, they're not, there's not much they can do other than, as was said, try to talk to your neighbors about it. We do have the signs available at you know, as I said, both the stickers and we have yard signs available at the office. If we need more, if we run out, we will order more. Just to get the word out, make sure that people understand it. Okay, any other questions? Thank you to everybody for attending today's meeting. Hopefully in 2021, we'll make it live. We'll get together again. And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I make a motion to adjourn the annual meeting. Bill Laffin.
Thank you, Bill.
I seconded Dieter Bush.
And Dieter. Thank you, everybody. The regular board meeting will take place in 5 minutes. At 10:50, we're going to take a 5-minute break. Doug DeFranco.
We're all set. Thank you very much.
Okay, Doug, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, 5 minutes. We'll bring it back on around 10:50. How's that?